What's that other stuff?
Huh. He's letting you know he's videoing.
She's rolling.
Oh, yeah? Recording that he's actually doing the presentation.
Actually, that I'm actually. I'm going to start off with a quote from James Madison. Nothing could be more irrational than to give people power to withhold from the information. Knowledge is power. Knowledge can be controlled. Democracy can be an effective form of government only when the public is well informed, can think independently and critically. Citizens need to recognize bias in the nation's news. Failure to detect ideology, slant, and spin that cannot reasonably determine what media messages have to be supplemented, counterbalanced, or thrown out entirely. Journalists should be honest. They should be fair. They should be courageous in gathering, reporting, and interpreting information. Ethical journalists treat sources, subject, and colleagues as human beings, deserving of respect. Journalists should be free of obligation to any interests other than the public's right to know. Journalists are accountable to their readers, listeners, viewers, and each other. Those are actually the ethics that come from the journalism ethics. One of the most cherished maxims, comment is free, but facts are sacred. Made 90 years ago in The Guardian, called the ultimate statement of value for free press. Some 80 years later, refers primarily to the truthful reporting of events. Comments and facts are different spheres. Facts come first, are established with care and sincerity, and remain unaffected. Theory of instrumental accusations developed by Kipner's challenges this view, claiming that journalists' opinions affected the selection of facts in news reporting. Journalists hold opinions towards the issues of the day, selection by news organization, by mass media in times of conflict, selection of news by mass media in times of harmony. Staff in the newsroom collective opinions on these issues. There are multiple news stories available linked with position. News stories are selected as to whether they help one another to defend their side, its stance on the issue. Counterintuitive that professional objective journalism would be seen as inaccurate. Perception of mainstream journalism has been with us for decades. Historically, one of the most used venues for information was in 2004, Pew Research Center project for excellence in journalism reported the average daily circulation from newspaper had peaked by the mid-1960s. Began a gradual decline due to increasingly voiced qualms with the picture's reality that the press previously had shown the public. The public has amplified that concern by pointing to problems with press inaccuracy. Scholar Anthony DiMago has tracked public concern about press credibility and found that from 1997 up onward, except for a short period during the 9/11 attacks, at least 56% of Americans said that the news accounts were riddled with inaccuracies. Public sees the mainstream media as too close to government, too associated into corporate America to fairly report the news, too influenced by powerful interest groups. Many media streams may hold two different views. A UCLA-led study found some surprising findings. The study that is believed to be the first successful attempt at objectively quantifying bias in a range of media outlets and ranking them accordingly. While the editorial page of the Wall Street Journal is conservative, the newspaper's news pages are just as liberal as the New York Times. The Drudge Report may have a right-wing reputation, but is less left. Coverage by public television and radio is conservative compared to the rest of the mainstream media. Meanwhile, almost all major media outlets tilt to the left. In a quote, I suspected that many media outlets would tilt to the left because surveys have shown that reporters tend to vote more Democrat than Republican, said Timmy Grassall, USUP political science and the study's leading author. But I was surprised at just how pronounced the distinctions are. Jeffrey Milo, University of Missouri economist and public policy scholar and the co-author of Media Bias is Real, said, overall, the major media outlets are quite moderate compared to members of Congress. But even so, there is a quantifiable and significant bias in that nearly all of them lean to the left. My conclusion is simply this. Plagiarism can also play a part in bias in uninformed decisions about inadvertently media. And I'll give you two examples. In 2003, an up-and-coming New York Times reporter was forced to resign when it was discovered that 36 of his 75 news stories he had written included ethical infractions, such as making up context, copying pages from other journalists' articles. And then in 2013, the German education community wanted to indict the education minister, force her to resign after the doctorate was revoked for plagiarism. The philosophy department said it had found proof the education minister had systematically and deliberately presented intellectual efforts in her 1980 dissertation paper were plagiarized but were also completely misleading. So, with all of this said, there are some techniques that individuals on their own can really truthfully go through the media and form their unbiased opinion. Research the paper. Take notes as you read the entire article. See if you could rewrite the article using the same information to tell a completely different story. Pay attention to the overall tone of the paper. Watch for buzzwords. Observe the placement of stories. Consider how people are portrayed through pictures. If statistics are provided or studies are mentioned, dig a little bit deeper. If headlines or charts tout the keywords like highest, biggest, since the X factor, do some more research. Learn to recognize press releases. Questions that the reader may want to ask themselves is what is missing from this article? How does the writer treat the people he or she is writing about? Does the writer try to identify with you or label you? And does the writer look for at least two sides in every story? Like I said, there's lots of things that we do. For us, it could be the radiogram. For some of us, it could be the radiogram. The other thing could be the simple thing of utilizing our cell phone. Are we lazy? Or we just don't really care anymore? We're just, blind sheep being taken to the slaughter. Any more questions?